All right, I'm going to get some more details from Bhavya, who's also covering another very interesting story. We know that the pandemic has been a very, very tough time for movies and for theatre companies, but PVR Inox has been on a complete tear. This last weekend between 11th to 13th has seen across the industry the highest collections ever in the history of Indian cinema at 390 crore rupees. In fact, that reflected very well on the PVR stock as well. But what is the ground reality and why are people going back to the theatres? I'm going across to Bhavya for that story.
So the inflation numbers are out and we see it being at a 15-month high. It has reached approximately 7.44, and we are at the theatres. It's the long weekend. We see huge crowds of people flocking in to the theatres to watch Gadar 2, to watch OMG 2. Gadar 2, especially being released on Independence Day weekend, has seen a lot of people walking into the theatres, and the josh, to say, is quite high. But recently we saw a controversy about PVR increasing the rates of its foods and beverages and movie tickets. A man filed a complaint on Twitter to which PVR responded by reducing the prices further. But speaking to a lot of movie theatres and their management around Delhi NCR, what we have gathered is that because of the rise in inflation, the numbers have increased by somewhere around 10% for food and beverages as well as the movie ticket prices. But in spite of that, we are seeing people flocking in to watch these two movies over the long weekend. We have seen an increase in the people flocking in to the theatres to watch movies since the time Barbie and Oppenheimer were released, and then Rocky and Rani followed, and now it's Gadar 2 and OMG 2. But will the theatres do something about the increasing movie tickets like PVR did? Let's wait and watch.
Footfall has been really crazy. I think they have, after Pathan, we have seen the kind of a crazy crowd during this weekend only. About the movies, this is a franchisee movie, which both the movies are franchisee. So Gadar 1, which was released in 2002 and 2000, during 2002 and 2003, was a successful movie, and we were expecting the same crowd, and people were waiting for this movie for a really, really long time. And then the magic is, you know, all around the country, you can see that. OMG 2 also performing fantastically over the box office, because OMG 1 was also a successful part.
Right.
So the movie has been really doing fantastic business, and the crowd is loving it.
So, since the pandemic hit us, we have seen people moving more towards the OTT platforms and less people going to the theatres. But now we see that trend coming back again. So how have you seen that change in the last few releases with Barbie, Oppenheimer, and then Rocky Rani, and now Gadar 2 and OMG 2?
Yeah, see, the Oppenheimer was also a very expected movie that going to do wonder on the box office, and also this commercially also done a justice in India. So the movie has crossed over 100 crores of a business, and also this Barbie also did a very good business, over 50 crore rupees of business. They in India they have done it. So the movie have sort of created a buzz.
And Karan Tarauni, SVP Research Analyst, is with me on the show. He tracks media, internet and consumer discretionary on Elara Securities. Karan, great to speak with you. Ahead of perhaps what is going to be another blockbuster day, because we have that 15th August holiday. Gadar 2 ne dhoom macha rakhi hai. So the question is, has the tide turned? We're seeing that in the PVR Inox stock. We're seeing that in some of the announcements that the industry has made over the weekend. Do you think this is sustainable, and the tide has truly turned for the industry and for theatres?
Hi, Tamanna. Good evening. Pleasure to be here. I think if you look at the Hindi film industry per se, I think they've been struggling, since cinemas have opened up in the post-COVID era. We have not seen such a run what we've seen in the last 4 to 5 weeks, wherein films consistently have done well, specifically for Hindi genre. And if you speak of Gadar, I think the collections are beyond expectations, and with the long weekend coming, I think the film could breach 200 to 300 crores mark in terms of net box office. Now, what you have to look here is that clearly, despite whatever is the noise for ticket prices, food prices, it is content, which eventually pulls people back into cinemas. And I think franchise-based franchise films is, one of the solutions which we had mentioned in our report as well, that, if you have good quality franchise-driven films, Hindi film industry will see a comeback. Whether it is sustainable or not, I think that is still a question mark, but definitely, we are heading towards better times as far as Hindi box office is concerned.
Okay, so you're talking about franchises. We saw that with Oh My God 2, Gadar 2. Before that, of course, you had the Barbie, Oppenheimer phenomenon. But, you've had good hit movies in the past as well. And we saw that whole turnaround with Pathan. The problem, Karan, is it doesn't seem to sustain beyond a point. Do you think that could change now? What is the lineup looking like for the next 6 months?
So I think if you look at the lineup, what has happened in the post-COVID era is that one mega trend has emerged. Our dependence on large budget films have increased in a very big way, right? So in the pre-COVID times, the contribution from large budget films, for the Hindi box office was somewhere close to 35 to 40 odd percent. You had at least 10 to 12 small, medium budget films doing very good business at box office. And that actually led to the jump in terms of the overall box office revenue. Now, in the post-COVID era, I think our dependence on large budget film in the Hindi genre has gone up towards 80-85%, right? And this just goes to show that the kind of risk you are into in this kind of a business. So if these 10, 20 films in the year do not perform, your collections can go down sharply, or if they outperform, collections can go up. So it's become like a very high risk scenario which is there. And I think thankfully, over the last 6 to 8 weeks, we have seen films at least reporting a collection which is on par or maybe like an outperformance. So that has thankfully been a saving grace. But I think structurally for things to really pick up and for momentum to really build in terms of footfall and, occupancy levels and Hindi box office coming back on track, it is very important for small, medium budget content also to perform. Now, the only thing is, it's not that small, medium budget films haven't done well. It is just purely the consistency levels. So if you look at, pre-COVID times, we had, one film doing well every 4 to 6 weeks, which is small, medium budget in nature. I think that frequency has now come to 3 to 4 months plus, because if you look at the films, I think over the last, 1.5 years since cinemas have opened up, we've had only Kashmir Files or maybe the Kerala Story, just 3, 4 films which are medium budget films which have done well in terms of collection. So I think this structural trend needs to change for now.
Just one point, and my colleague Bhavya was mentioning it in her report as well, is the impact of inflation. And we're going to go to that inflation story in just a bit to talk about the really little worrying, I would say, CPI print that we've seen for July at 7.4%. While all this conversation is on about tomato prices and dairy and no more free cheese and Subway sandwiches, that doesn't seem to be having an impact on the box office, you think?
No, it doesn't. Two reasons for this. I think one is that the audience is really looking forward to spend more if the content is worthy in nature. We've seen back-to-back success as far as films are concerned and cinemas are concerned. We saw Oppenheimer, Barbie, Mission Impossible, and Rocky Rani doing above average business, and Gadar being like a super hit. So it clearly goes to show that the audience is somewhere caught in a monotony wherein they really want to go out. And if the content is compelling, it is franchise driven, the audience is not kind of shying away from paying more money. If you look at ticket prices, I think, if you compare the ticket prices from last 3 months versus now, even right now, ticket prices are higher as compared to what they were about 3 to 4 months back. But despite that, we are seeing good occupancy levels. And if you compare them on a pre-COVID level basis, we are already about 15-20% higher ticket prices. We are at, 30% higher food prices. So despite all these numbers have come. So I think the audience is clearly, wanting to go out. And India as a country, if you see, we've got limited outing options. So I don't see this as a matter of concern. So unless the content clearly, does well on a consistent basis, it is compelling, you've got VFX-driven films, or you've got franchise-driven films, or you've got large-scale-driven films, I think audience will, continue to visit cinemas in large numbers.
To work hard for their footfalls and, to make sure that they buy your inflated popcorn and colas. You have to make sure that the content is worth their time. Thank you so much, Karan Tarauni, for joining us, and we'll see who wins the I-Day box office race as well. Let me turn to the other big